Does it work now? Can you guys hear me? Hello, hello. Gabino, you want a little time? Okay, you're good to start now? Okay. Well, I think probably a couple more, maybe another class or so is going to come in, but welcome everybody. Welcome to our very first Helen M. Salzberg Visiting Artist 2023 talk. We're so glad that you could make it. This talk represents our inaugural year with our very first artist, Gabino A. Castelán. Let's give him a little round of applause. And of course, it was made possible by our generous patron, Helen M. Salzberg, who some of you may have heard of. Our gallery is named after her. She's 100 years old. She's still alive and well, making art over in Palm Beach. So last spring, a call went out that 38 artists responded to, and we looked through all these applications. We chose Mr. Castelán based on his professional and artistic accomplishment, as well as his statement regarding the mentorship piece, which you guys might know about. First, Mr. Castelán came to campus to conduct portfolio reviews, and he met our mentors, the Koo Family Art Collaborative mentees, which were 3. And keep in mind, you guys can apply for this mentorship program for the next round. The winning artist gets, the winning 3 students get to work with next year's artists, and they get $1,500, right? So it's pretty cool. You might have seen their show. That was their last exhibit over at the HMS Gallery. He then worked with the mentees, taking them on many, many trips to Miami and other cities where they met artists, curators, and visited cutting-edge galleries. He basically introduced them to the professional art world in a way that they really wouldn't have known about. Some of these students were living up in Jupiter Farms. They wouldn't have the first thing about how to, access, to visit like a really exclusive curator in Miami. Finally, they assisted Mr. Castelán on a mural that he produced, so they helped him out for a show at North Miami MoCA, and they really enjoyed that. Let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Castelán. Gabino A. Castelán was born in Puebla, Mexico, and lives and works in Florida and New York. He is an interdisciplinary artist whose practice is driven by research, process, and experimentation through various mediums such as drawing, painting, installation, and utilitarian sculpture. Castelán received an MFA in 2017 and a BFA in 2012 in painting from Hunter College. Recent exhibitions include the South Florida Cultural Consortium, Museum of Contemporary Art, North Miami, Florida, Bronx Calling, the 5th AIM Biennale, the Bronx Museum of the Arts in Bronx, New York, and slowly arriving, Kunsthaus Baseland in Basel, Switzerland. Castelán says of his work, "My paintings and works on paper depict figures in colorful geometric architectural spaces undergoing the conflicts and desires of the human experience. I explore material and mark making to generate nonlinear dreamscape narratives that provoke perception while challenging the grand narrative tradition. My work oscillates between themes of presence and absence, fact and fantasy, reason and madness." So let's give a hand to Mr. Castelán.
Thank you, Jax. That was a beautiful introduction. Appreciate it. So thank you for coming this afternoon to all of you guys. I really appreciate it. So I'm really, so I'm honored to be standing in front of all of you and sharing with you my artistic journey. I want to thank Jax again, Jordan, Palm Beach State College, the Helen M. Salzberg Fellowship, and the Koo Family Art Collaborative Mentorship Program for this great opportunity. And of course, you guys, because then I will be talking to, who will I be talking to? So thanks for listening to me. I want to share with you guys a brief history of my background and share what I'm presently thinking about and where my thinking is at this point in my life. I always like to write on paper. I find it best, to have my thoughts have a very specific and, it's a nice thing to do. It's a nice thing to do. So my family is growing. We had our firstborn. She's 15 months old. And I feel blessed. I want to thank my wife, the love of my life, Ayla, for the family she has given me. It's so magical that we all start as small clusters of cells. Then our heart develops first with powerful heartbeats. Our brain starts developing too, but our brain guides our heart to have a heartbeat with rhythm. That's the artist I am continuously working to become, to follow my heart, my intuition, and reflect my emotional and intellectual concerns. So I have a direct engagement. Well, that's me right there when I was I think maybe like 2 years old. I know, right? People change, right? But I want to tell you a little journey from how I came to the States. It was in 1993. I come from a very small town in Santana de Coscla. And this small town used to have a very big population of indigenous folks, and they go with the name of Nahuatls. But now, of course, after the Spanish came, everybody got mixed. So I came from, my mother migrated from Santana de Coscla, and then we crossed the border illegally at Nogales. And then we flew to New York. This was in 1993. But the reason why they immigrated was because of the North American Free Trade Agreement, which forced many workers into the neoliberal global market. So I come from a very small family who farm. They do a lot of farming, and both countries got hit, the US and Mexico, during that, when that agreement happened, a lot of the factories from the US had to move to the States, had to move to Mexico because of cheap labor, right? So both countries, the working class got hit. So many Mexican agricultural jobs were affected, such like my dad's, which made him come to the US. So I was 7 years old when my family left our indigenous rural town. And it was my parents' determination to escape Mexico's decreasing living standards. So this memory reminds me that, like my family, we are all vulnerable creatures searching for safety and security. So I remember when I was 5 years old, I found this hand-sized Mesoamerican sculpture made out of stone. And for me, that was very spectacular. And I thought about how the person who made it, at that age, I wasn't too, it was too early for me to be thinking about artists in any kind of historical sense. Even though while living in Puebla, I knew my mission was to become a person who made pictures or objects. I couldn't say that it was to be an artist because I didn't know at that age what an artist was. So ever since I started being intrigued for what I saw, from images to architecture, I wanted to become a person who makes these beautiful objects and pictures. I want to make things as spectacular as the things that I see. I want to make pictures that I will make other people feel the way I feel when I see stunning images and objects. As a child, the stuff that I found intriguing and breathtaking at that time, well, this is where I used to live. Well, I still live there, but was lucha libre, wrestlers. I love the costumes. It's very artistic, Thundercats, and there's these two comic books from Mexico. One is named Calimán, and another one is Fuego. So Fuego talks about the Haitian Revolution, and the superhero is this Haitian superhero. And in Calimán is this Egyptian superhero. I think there's around 1,000 comic books for Calimán. I think for Fuego it's around 300 comic books. But these came out during the 60s. I was born in the 80s, 86. but my mom used to collect these and I used to have them. I used to read them. I grew up looking at James de la Vega. Uh, he's a street artist from New York. I grew up looking at his murals, as well as his side chalk drawings. I love this one. Become your dream. You know, to be mindful even if your mind is full. I think that just every time I used to bike in New York City, or whenever I used to walk around neighborhood in Spanish Harlem, I would like just see those quotes and it would just like grab my heart. I'm like, damn, I need to do my dream, you know? So I was 20 years old when I visited the La Vega Museum. He closed the museum. It's a small storefront, but he called it a museum. But he closed it, I think maybe like 25 years ago. But when I went inside his storefront museum, I saw works that were being started and I saw works that were being in process. And I also saw works that were being finished. So I could see at that time that making art was a process that people did because of something they knew. And it wasn't something that happened by magic. It takes perseverance, dedication, and commitment. And the magic then starts to happen. That was when I knew I wanted to be that kind of person, an artist. And I've been exploring what every other artist has been exploring, and that is the thought about or believed it was possible to create a picture, an object, or a painting. So when someone understands the structure of how things work, that opens many possibilities. That's in any kind of career. As an artist, I've always looked at the structural underpinnings, specifically with painting. For example, looking at master painters such as Robert S. Duncanson. He was a landscape painter he was the second generation of Hudson painters during the 19th century, and he was a European and African ancestry, and during that time he was one of the well-known African-American painters, landscape painters. Julia Hartbeers, I couldn't find a picture of her, but her paintings are just amazing. Richard Mayhew, he's still alive, by the way. He's 99 years old. It's crazy. And Vincent van Gogh, and this is one of my favorites, Mexican muralist David Alfaro Siqueiros. So by studying these artists, I was able to understand the structural underpinnings of what made their paintings. So these painters were masters, draftsmen, and women, unparalleled in terms of skill, density, and the sensibility they projected through their paintings. They used layers of paint to create their images. So if the surface gloss is removed, one can see the process on how things can accumulate over time. So by knowing this, I was like, I need to find a way to make paintings. I need to find a way to call it my own. So this led me to explore the practice of layering. In my process, I layer drawing, I layer painting and collage and material. I explore basic perspective and the visual language of non-representational painting, which is color, shapes, movement, and spatial structures. So in my work, I always try to figure out what's at stake and these different hierarchies of value regarding working and producing. Now, I want to show you guys something that I have never shown to no one. This is between us. It stays in this room. Work that I did when I was a kid, work that I did during my BFA program, and work that I did during my MFA program. So I'm going to be very transparent. Don't make fun of me, guys, all right? So I went through every phase of art making. I would say that 30% of my artwork is inspired by Western art history. And the other 70% of my artwork is inspired by Mesoamerican art, global art history, music such as cumbia, ska, hip hop, jazz, and of course, being a human being. So I'm just gonna like click at them really quickly, but I might talk about some of them briefly. This was my first one. I was 7 years old. The one on the one on my right, well, the one on your left, and then the one on your right. I was 9 years old. I think I was like 11, and then 13. I think I was there 15, 16 years old. I was there around 23, 22. And then I was like, you know what? I need to get away from painting, you know, because I was like, I know painting. I love it. I need to explore other ways, other materials. So whoever's an artist here, I would say explore, as a young artist, explore all the materials, explore all the ways of how to make art. Just explore them. So I made some sculpture, how to find objects. Then here I was trying to like combine, trying to close the gap between painting and sculpture. I think I did an awful job. But these have helped me so much to where I'm at, you know? Painting is a process, you know? Painting is, or making artwork is a process. This is during my MFA program. No, this is BFA still. Also BFA. I was trying to like create these like almost human-like paintings. Working with, again, with like found material. So like, you know, New York City is filthy, right? And it's a lot of garbage. And sometimes the garbage was my treasure during my BFA program. But then I was like, you know what? I need to go back to painting. I need to go back to drawing. So I started making these pieces, and I started to combine more, you know, using these objects and painting these more of a representational pieces. This was my BFA thesis, big mural. This is after my BFA. I took 2 years off, no, 1 year off from school. And I started went back to painting, back to painting, back to painting, again, back to painting as well. But then I was getting tired of painting again. And I was like, I told myself, what can I do to bring community into my work? So I reached out to a bunch of organizations in New York City. And one of them actually liked my idea. And we collaborated at this real estate office. We made the murals, and then we created programming in the space. There was like poetry reading, people were selling their work. It's very cultural. People were dancing, doing salsa dance classes. Then I went back to painting again. This is my MFA program. I was like, okay, I want to make these spaces, but how can I be more distinctive from what other artists are doing? And I started to play with projection and light. This is one of them that just kind of moves around a little bit. We're back again. This was my mid-program. So during the MFA program, what they do is you have to pass a mid-program test. It's like your mid-program finals, I guess. Yeah, that's how you call it. If you fail, you get kicked out from school, man. I didn't fail, of course, but it was a lot of work. And then I was like, you know what? Let me take this stuff into the streets. So I decided to rent a space that was pretty much run down. I was in Spanish Harlem. And I started painting first. That's me right there. And then a group of folks were like, what are you doing? I posted on Instagram. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, I'm just making some stuff, man. He's like, I want to help you out. I'm like, sure, come down. And they came. They started cleaning it. Some of them started painting their own murals in it. And we call it the practice of everyday life. And that's the background. So if you can see that, these two right here, that's before and after, right? Yeah, that's what we did. So this is when also I started to have this idea of bringing a collective of non-citizen workers and citizen workers in New York. And I named them cultural workers. And I wrote this manual pretty much that as a way to organize ourselves to create these spaces. And this was my studio back at MFA program. And then I was like, okay, I need to find a way where I could create furniture that can come out of the walls, but also be considered paintings. So I did that again. We did some tastings there in that place. We did a mezcal tasting. We did a three-course tasting, and then we had performances happening there as well. Some of the food that the chef cooked. This chef here is well, I mean, he's known in New York City, but not back then. But now he is. His name is, you should look him up. His name is Juan Bautista. He's a head chef at the Warren in New York. And then so this was the three-course menu, and that's I don't know if you guys can see that was the mezcal. And then some people saw my work and they were like, okay, I want to invite you over to an institution. And this was my first piece that I was able to install it in a non-for-profit organization named Louis Saida Center. And then I was cooking black bean burgers. And these are my utilitarian sculptures. That's how I call them. They're just furniture. But the reason why I call them utilitarian sculptures is because for me, they become a platform for myself, but also for the people that I'm working with to pretty much shine. This is my thesis show. Again, me cooking, poetry reading. It's a little video so you guys can see a little bit of what happened there. It's like 4 minutes long. So there was a lot of planning. It's a lot of planning in my work. So this was in 2017. So yeah, it was a long time ago. Oh, forget we have those screens too. Look at that. Kind of feels weird, kind of looking at myself working. It took us like at least a week and a half to accomplish this installation with like 10 people working with it, on it. And in the space, we had workshops, we had gatherings. I think there's like maybe 2 events that are gonna be shown in this video.
You know I'm free, free, free now. I'm free from your spell.
So I want to talk to you about how I was inspired of making these spaces. There's this church in Mexico called San Juan Chamula, in Chiapas. So the building is a Catholic, the building is Catholic architecture. But inside they represent a lot of Mayan gods. So this unique blend of Catholic and indigenous beliefs is the result of 500 years of cultural competition. Soon after their arrival in the 1520s, the Spanish began to co-opt aspects of indigenous spirituality to placate the local Maya. Later, the native people began to blend their traditional rituals with the Catholic ones introduced by missionaries. So this is a great example of intersecting those 2 ideas, right? The architecture, but then inside, they still practice their own rituals. They still sell their own things. And they, they're themselves. And I find that very fascinating because that's the reason why I was making these spaces that you saw a few minutes ago, because I wanted to create something of my own that I could call my own, but also share it. Now, I've dedicated myself to a certain kind of process of internalizing the logic of painting so that I could find a way of synthesizing what I've learned into an image that I could claim to be my own. The works on display that you will get to see after this talk are done with color pencils, gold, silver leaf, collage, acrylic paint, image transfers, and adding materials such as leather, beads, and string. The mediums I use have historical value, and it says something about the origins of making art and what painting is. I am a compulsive image collector and a person who never saw a book that wasn't worth looking at or a picture that wasn't worth cutting out or screenshotting. I'm interested in objects that I do not know how to create because it challenged me to learn and open my curiosity about how they were created. In 5th grade, I was attending an after-school program named East Harlem Tutorial Program, where I met Fred, my tutor. He gave me 2 art books, Vincent van Gogh and Rembrandt. I wanted to understand their subject and the way they were painting. So I learned, but I could never be Rembrandt or Van Gogh. I needed to be Gabino, Castelán. So themes of presence and absence came from experiences of illegally migrating with my family from Mexico to the US. Being undocumented felt like I was invisible. I felt like my family was invisible. I grew up in an environment where the labor of undocumented migrants needed to be present, but their voices were absent. I started to learn about authors and books such as Gloria Saldúa, Borderlands La Frontera, and Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man, who could understand how one could be simultaneously present and absent. The presence of light and the absence of light. My work deals with perception. What we choose to look at becomes present, and what we choose not to look becomes absent. In my artwork and paintings, I'm constantly figuring out ways to create separation between the figures and the ground. I'm making this sort of visual game of perception where they can have something that is simultaneously there and alternatively not there. My titles come from a surrealist kind of attitude, where you have these elaborate poetic titles. My artistic practice deals with ideas about perception, color, painting, history, and the human condition. An example is the Aztec codices that were not destroyed by the Spanish and those that were created during the occupation of the Spanish. I look at how Nahuatl artists created these pictorial manuscripts as a visual communication system, how they apply color within such linear boundaries without any modeling or shading, as well as how the human form can be divided into separate component parts. While architectural forms are not realistic, but bound by conventions, the absence of three-dimensionality and perspective. But post-conquest, as you can see, there is some type of illusion and width and perspective. So now I'm going to briefly talk about the works that are on display. And I do not make works about me. I might reference myself, but my work references the term Nepantla, a word used by Nahuas, native people of Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, representing the concept of in-betweeners. For the Nahuas, Nepantla is a space between two worlds, where one exists amid transformation. I learned of the concept from the scholar Gloria Saldúa from the book Borderlands La Frontera, in which she adopted the term to represent psychic, spiritual, and material points of potential transformation. Choosing Nepantla to situate my practice, my work reflects on my personal memories and bridges histories of subjugation from different times and spaces. In the world where everything intersects and blends, how do these stories echo through generations, and what can we learn from them? Conceptually, I view Nepantla as a liminal space of creation to imagine the laborer's everyday life. Through layering, drawing, painting, and collage, I portray the laborer as a phenomenon on an epic journey of metamorphosis, and in doing so, acknowledge the tragedy of economic exploitation. Ambiguity and mystery are embedded in the artwork's materiality and visual narrative. I create fictional realms where multiple forms of imagery transform. I depict imaginary geometrical worlds that encompass aspects of the worker's spiritual, political, and cultural life. This is how my work connects to the fundamental truths of the human condition. I capture the physical traits of each figure to identify and anchor us in our humanity. We hunt, we gather, we work, we trade, we love, we die, we give birth, we marry. My artistic practice venerates the labor universally because they create the commodities that sustain modern life. I paint the laborer as relics of fundamental truth about the human condition, or at least a worthy acknowledgement of the tragedy of the system and our social contracts that are supposed to help guide and support a wide range of human activity. Workers are condemned to their destiny. I am also condemned to my destiny. We are all condemned to our destiny, trapped by our own circumstances, just like the workers. And there is a certain comfort in that, to truly empathize and identify and see it as a reminder to accept ourselves. But also, even if our stories do not have a happy beginning, it does not need to define us for life. who we choose to be as we learn and grow is very essential. Now, I want to briefly talk about two paintings that are on display. This one is called Our Mothers Have Not Abandoned Us. And it was inspired by the pictorial composition of David Alfaro Siqueiros, which is this mural right here, which was created in 1932. The name of the mural is called Tropical Oprimida y Destrozada por los Imperialismos, or Tropical America Oppressed and Destroyed by Imperialism. And such symbolic compositions are the central crucified indigenous figure, which you see right in the middle, the Mesoamerican architecture ruins, the eagle, which you see it right also in the middle, and the two sharpshooters are actually right. So Our Mothers That Have Not Abandoned Us have 6 images that occupy the scene. The first image is chained. The second image is seated crisscross with a pensive look. The third image reveals a snippet face. The fourth image is an eagle. The fifth image are children looking at the scene. And the sixth image is the floral fragments of Guadalupeo spread throughout the composition. So the first image, which is the one in chain, is emerging from the golden and silver bars, head tilted, gazing at us, exposing chain arms and legs, references the quote from The Social Contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Man is born free and he's everywhere in chains. The third image, which is a snippet portrait, which is right in the middle, is from Jessie Lopez de la Cruz. She was a Chicano-American farm worker and activist. Jessie was the Jessie was Let me use this. Hello? There you go. Let me use this one. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, no, it was off. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So, I mean, it's just fascinating how, from medieval times to those times, and then looking at my piece, my piece is not about savagery. It's about, I'm gonna get into it. It's about pretty much commemorating and celebrating the women that were forced to sterilize during the 1950s after World War II in California. Most of these women were Mexican Americans, but also there were African Americans that were being sterilized, Asian Americans. So I started to do more in-depth research about why there was this kind of forced sterilization in America during the 1900s. At the beginning, it was just to sterilize the poor, the disabled, and the prisoners. During 1909, up to 30 states adopted these laws. The movement, to some extent, was a reaction to demographic and population changes, as well as concerns over the economy and social well-being, rather than scientific genetics. But after World War II, that was when they started to target Mexican American farm workers. In 1964, California sterilized over 20,000 people, mostly poor women. So this piece is about that. It's about life. It's about being a woman. It's about giving birth. It's about celebration of life. Now, you guys might think that that forced sterilization does not exist now. It kind of does. There's like 70 states that allow it, but they only do it for children with disabilities, which I find it kind of very sad, but I find it very sad. And one of those states that does it, it's here. It's in Florida. And I feel like, I have a daughter, and thankfully she's well, but if she was disabled, I don't know how I would feel if I was gone and my wife was gone. I don't know who else would protect her. So I find this kind of information upsetting, but also it makes me make work about this kind of stuff. So this was the piece at Mocha that the mentees helped me create, the mural. So I'm gonna talk to you about the reason why I use perspective in my work. I consider the use of perspective like a time machine. I want to understand the past and learn it. My work is not only the work that uses nonlinear narratives or time. One of the oldest works of art is a book that we all know, the Bible. I grew up in a very Catholic environment. I used to see my mom read the Bible every day, twice a day, actually. And the Bible is a magnificent piece of literature. I remember my mom telling me that the Bible is non-linear and the books aren't in chronological order. The Genesis and the Revelation. She said that each book in the Bible is a standalone work of art. So to me, the use of perspective in general is to create interesting architectural compositions for the viewer to sense visual space and time. It is a way to pull them in, but also offer them an entrance and an exit viewpoint for their eyes and minds to wonder about and engage with color, shapes, material, movement, and spatial structures. In painting, the illusion of depth has been part of the artist's vocabulary to tell stories. Before perspective came around, painters used scale, overlapping, hue, detail, and tone to create spatial depth. I am doing the same thing. Each image and texture that I use comes from a different source. And when I complete a painting, it somehow makes sense. Sometimes my process starts very linear. It has, I have a process that's very linear, but then it starts to wander around. It starts to become very nonlinear. So the nonlinear narrative is a narrative technique used in literature, in film, in video games, and other narratives. Now, the reason why I like to talk about time and space is because of the Hubble telescope and the James Webb telescope, which I found very fascinating, of how we can, I don't know, investigate space, and also the invention of the kaleidoscope. The kaleidoscope has a lot in common with my artistic practice. I'm an artist who uses color, perspective, and shapes and figures instead of pieces of glass to tell stories and share ideas. To me, the concept of kaleidoscope can be used as a metaphor to understand the world and universe. The small mirror fragments in a kaleidoscope reflect images of bits of color glass in a symmetrical geometric design. And it may be changed endlessly by rotating the section containing the loose fragments. Did any of you guys have a kaleidoscope here as kids? I guess maybe the older generation. And so new patterns emerge and then change, sometimes swiftly, sometimes at a barely noticeable pace. The luminescent colors and shapes evoke wonder, diversity, possibility, and an ever-present anticipation of what comes next. The kaleidoscope also reminds me that our world and universe are not fixed. Rotating the lens mimics the passing of time, the spinning of the earth, and it reassures me that even as one beautiful vista begins to erode, another will come to fill the space with renewed beauty and meaning. Finally, the kaleidoscope is a physical manifestation of inclusion and belonging, a space that is more appealing precisely due to the convergence of pieces that maintain their distinct characteristics. The result is that the whole and the parts of the valuable are needed. So going back to the Hubble telescope, it was the first time that they were able to demonstrate us, the telescope was able to demonstrate us that our galaxies and universe are always expanding. They're not fixed, they're always expanding, they're always growing, it's growing. And the James Webb telescope, which was launched 2 years ago, right? I think during Christmas. What this telescope wants to do, they want to look back in time of how everything started, which is also just another step for the human mind to understand how space and time works. But before I finish, I want to share with you 5 questions that I think are very important to ask. These questions are not peculiar to what artists do, but I think they have a lot to do with the way in which you want to live your life in the world and the kind of world you want to live your life in. First question, why is the world the way it is? And who says it should be? That's the most important question anybody can ask. Then, if you want to be an artist, the following questions are: what is the art world all about? What's at stake? What do you want as an artist who desires to participate in the art world? What is it that you want, that you can do to determine or to guarantee that you achieve the kinds of things that you set out to achieve for yourself? These are the questions that I always ask myself. So I'm going to read you guys this quote, from this book called Post-Impressionism, from Van Gogh to Gauguin by this famous historian named John Rewald. A member of the Neo Impressionist group, Paul Signac. So Paul Signac and Georges Seurat, they heard of pointillism? Okay, so these two cats are like the main ones of pointillism. But there was beef between them during that time because Georges Seurat wanted to claim that he invented it, but then Paul Signac said that no, we both invented it. But anyway, I'm going to read you guys this quote that Georges Seurat said. I have never told him anything but what I have always thought. The more numerous we are, the less originality we shall have. And the day when everybody uses this technique, it will no longer have any value. And while we'll look for something else as has already happened. He then added, it is my right to think and to say so, since I paint in this way only in order to find something new and art entirely my own. So that's what I'm doing too. I'm trying to find my own art, my own voice. And you guys should too. Now I want to finish by saying to all of you, I ask that please, none of you ever take what you are doing for granted. Artists are important, and art, more than anything in society, has the power to change perception. Art is what artists do, and art is perception. Reality depends upon perception. Change perception, and we change reality. Long live the arts. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, I don't know if you want to open.
It'd be wonderful if we could take questions. What is the little?
Oh, here.
No.
Where?
Microphone.
Oh, here.
Tech support. Okay. Does this work? Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Gabino?
Don't be afraid. I don't bite. I'm open. Ask me anything.
Oh, I won't stand. I have some questions. What would you say is your, I guess, most current style of art and your medium of choice?
What you're gonna see today at the gallery.
Okay.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, yeah. This past 3 years, I've been focusing on how to create my own voice. You know, and it takes time. There's this artist. I don't know if you guys heard of him. His name is Carrie James Marshall. He's a he's a great painter. And he said this, being an artist is kind of like a postman. Because when you graduate from college, well, let's say you graduate when you're 23 or 25, and then you will retire at the age of 65, right? Or 70 years old. That's like 40 years, right? So for 40 years, one has to work their butts off to be able to get a good retirement, right? And as an artist, we need to do that too. We need to work our butts off and produce a lot of work and have consistency. But also, I would say experiment. I love to experiment and make good work that could, or at least a couple of good works that could keep moving forward. And then after those 40 years have passed, then one can see if one succeeded as an artist. And when he said that, I was like, damn, that's true. I have a long way. And when I graduated from my BFA and MFA, I never thought I was able to at least make a buck out of being an artist. You know, make $1 out of being an artist, and you know, slowly I am. So yeah.
I have a question. What was the most trying part of your journey, and how do you stay motivated?
It's a great question. motivation, it's like work. You have to do it. Sometimes I get up and I have to look for it. So it's you have to find it. It's something that comes to you and you have to grab it. And when you grab it, hold on to it, because then afterwards it's gonna disappear. So it's about making work as much as you can, because that's how inspiration comes out. Because if you sit down and wander around, nothing's gonna come. You get depressed, or you get tired, you get lazy. You know what I'm saying? And that's happened to me. I remember during my MFA program, I'm gonna tell you a little story. I lost my mom out of brain cancer in 2013, and that hit me hard. You know, got so depressed that I couldn't make art. I couldn't make art at all. I started drinking a lot. It was not a good feeling. So then I got into this well-known residency in Maine called Skowhegan School of Sculpture and Painting. And for me, that was my therapy, to take 3 months off without being part of my family and just make art. And that's where motivation happened to me. I just had to be motivated.
Questions?
Thank you.
Hello, Gabino. Gabino, I'm art appreciation teacher here, and several of my students are here. I wanted to actually have you do something, if you don't mind, a request. If you could go back to your image of your site-specific installation at MoCA. I did see it, by the way. It was an incredible, standing in that space is an amazing
Thank
experience.
you very much. Thank you.
But I also, most of the students that I teach are not art students and have not been exposed to the arts even very much, possibly. So I wanted to ask you if you could describe a little bit more about what we're looking at exactly, and also I love how you say that perspective, which you use, different perspective, and this is like a portal to a different kind of mind space, but also a time travel. I mean, your work is also about time travel. You reference everything from myth to ska to jazz I mean, there's so much in every piece. It's like we're time traveling with you. If you could just point out kind of some of the aspects of the piece so they can understand exactly what they're looking at. And just briefly, this idea of the perspective and being that tool of making us travel through your work.
Right. So it's a good question. And so the reason why I did it in a corner piece, in a corner section of the museum, was because I wanted the viewer to stand right in the center of the piece, so he or she can have both views. And I want them to enter, the first part to enter is this that area right here. So this area is like a doorway to enter here. And then once you enter there, you see this folks, mariachi folks, either about to start playing or they finished playing, and this couple dancing.
And those are like life size. Just explain. Like this is a
Yes,
12-foot high
mural.
basically in a corner.
Yes,
Right.
yes, it is. It's a pretty big mural. Yeah, yes, it's 15 feet tall. And then once you enter this area, you get to see this more works on paper. And the layer, the reason why I added this other layer behind is as a way to make it look like another room. And then once you enter that, then you enter this area here as well. These two areas of this couple who one is either she's pregnant, and this male, or who is either looking out for, oh, that's how I was thinking about when they gave me the space. I was like, okay, how can I make this space intriguing for the viewer to come in, but also for them to pull out, and for them to pull out also is these works on paper, because they're so detailed. You could go in, you could go back out. So it's like this. As an artist, you have to look within yourself, right? Within yourself. And then once you understand what's inside of you, then you can actually take it out and deconstruct it and create this synthetic, or no, this organic environment. So for me, for the viewer, I want the viewer to feel like they going inside the space, but also this space, they can feel that it's going inside them as well. And then going back in and out, back in and out, in and out, in and out.
Right, and then the next slide would be the detail of that, the individual depth.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that's in the piece.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, and then I also add material like beads and string of leather and collage and paint as a way to also be like, hey, is that actual painting, or is that collage?
Questions? Dean Join.
Back to the other one. This one?
That, yeah, so I'm in awe of the artist mind and how you have vision and how that translates out to something like this. Can you talk a little bit about your process? Is this something that you see completely in your mind before you start, or does this develop over time? And when you first start envisioning it, do you see the man with the guitar there already, or is this, how does that happen in your head?
So sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. But for this work, I first saw the architecture. I did like a bunch of drawings for me to get there. And I've tried to find different ways to
I think the buzz is back.
I try to find different ways to that's the most fun part.
Any other, I guess,